Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. We're jumping right into a seriously untold story about a pioneer who literally engineered the digital connections we rely on every single day. I mean, we spend so much of our lives swiping, tapping, and just, living online. But we rarely stop to ask how the foundation for this whole interconnected world was actually laid. Seriously, I want you to break the fourth wall with me for just a second. Look down at the smart device in your hands right now, or whatever screen you're watching this on. Really ask yourself, who built the very first iterations of these smart devices and cyberspaces that we completely take for granted today? Who was dreaming up handheld touchscreen computers and digital community hubs decades, literally decades, before everyone had Wi-Fi in their pockets? Well, the answer is a guy named Scott Joy.
To really understand Scott Joy, we kind of have to define exactly what he is. He's what we call a visionary catalyst. His lifelong mission hasn't just been about, soldering tech hardware together. It's about engineering human connection. What makes him so incredibly unique is his ability to look at raw, super complex tech and find the human application. Way back in 1974, he co-founded the Future Options Room, and their goal? Get this, to look at highly advanced, complex NASA technology and figure out how to spin it off into everyday systems that foster genuine human connection. It's like taking rocket science and translating it into something you and I can actually use. And this brilliantly illustrates the massive gap Joy spent his entire career bridging. On side A, you've got raw engineering, the cold, complex, highly technical side of innovation. Then over on side B, you have human usability, the actual people who need intuitive tools to learn, work, and communicate. Crossing that gap is incredibly difficult. It's a real puzzle, but it's exactly where Scott Joy absolutely thrived, acting as the essential bridge between what's technically feasible and what is genuinely useful for humanity. All right, so here is our roadmap for today. We're going to trace his journey chronologically. First, the hidden tech architect. Then, microprocessors meet play. Third, pioneering the smartphone. Fourth, first collaborative cyberspaces. And finally, the people's internet. Kicking things off with Section 1, the hidden tech architect, where he's bridging that gap between tech and humanity. Now, to really appreciate his work, we've got to set the stage in an era where the general public barely even understood stationary desktop computers, let alone something portable. Tracing his timeline, it is just wild to see how far ahead of the curve he was. Look at this. In 1978, he's introducing the Smart Alec toy. By 1980, he's launching the Planet restaurant. Fast forward to 1990, he's prototyping the Telepad Uni and going all the way to 2026 with his work on the on-air networks. The sheer scale and foresight of this decade-spanning career, it shows a man who is constantly, always anticipating the next massive leap in human connectivity.
Okay, let's dive into Section 2, microprocessors meet play, bringing computing directly to the consumer.
To cross that huge gap from raw tech to consumer goods, Joy knew he couldn't just rely on engineers working in a silo. So at his company Cyanco, he built a cross-functional team to apply the brand new microprocessor directly to the toy industry. The result was a massive industry first. In 1978, his team introduced Smart Alec. This was the very first microprocessor-based computer designed specifically for kids. It used these 6x8-inch cards with graphics on the front and barcodes on the back. A child would use a microprocessor and keyboard that literally read the cards to trigger interactive learning games. This specific invention is effectively the grandfather of those leapfrog toys you see absolutely everywhere today. He was taking complex computer chips and turning them into approachable, interactive fun. Oh, and I just have to share this surprising piece of trivia with you, because it perfectly shows his pop culture impact. His team at Cyanco, they also designed ROM. Yeah, it was the very first cyborg toy, marketed by Parker Brothers. And it was so incredibly popular and futuristic at the time that it actually became the direct inspiration for the Marvel comic series of the exact same name. No way, right? He wasn't just influencing tech, he was literally shaping pop culture.
Moving right along to Section 3, pioneering the smartphone, decades ahead of the curve.
So as we moved into the 1990s, Joy's focus shifted towards professional portable communication through the Telepad Corporation. He partnered with the principal developers of the Amiga computer, which, by the way, was the first graphical computer, to build something totally unbelievable, the 1990 Uni prototype. This was a handheld device that featured pen and touch operation, voice communications, and a built-in data modem. Just think about that for a second. This little thing possessed the core functionality of a modern smartphone years, literally decades, before the term even existed. I mean, most people didn't even have a clunky desktop computer at home yet, and he was building a touchscreen device with a modem that fit right in the palm of your hand. By 1994, he was leading the design of the Telepad 3 tablet computer. And to validate just how spot-on his hardware foresight was, listen to this historic praise from industry experts. Penn Computing magazine wrote back in 1995 that it was, quote, a complete rethinking of what a portable computer should be, and in our opinion, succeeded brilliantly. He completely redefined portable computing at a really critical moment in tech history. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer financial validation of his vision. When Joyce took Telepad public as chairman and CTO, he raised a staggering $30 million in equity capital in the first year alone. To put that into perspective, that proved that the market absolutely believed in his vision of portable, deeply connected communication devices.
Next up, Section 4, First Collaborative Cyberspaces, Connecting Our Physical and Digital Worlds.
At this point, Joy realized that digital networks had the profound power to foster real-world, local connections. He wanted to bring the physical and the digital together. So, prepare to have your mind absolutely boggled. In 1980, a full decade before the World Wide Web was even a household term, Joy conceived and financed the world's very first internet cafe. It was called the Planet Restaurant. It was this 200-seat venue located in Washington, D.C., literally 3 blocks from the White House. Inside, patrons could sit down at lounge terminals and access The Source, which was a pre-AOL online news service, as well as the EIS system, which was an early form of computer conferencing. He physically brought people together in a public space to experience the internet when it was just an infant. And he brought that exact same physical-digital ethos to his work in higher education. Over at George Mason University, he created the 2C Lab, standing for Creativity and Collaboration. There, he designed what he called flex offices. He seamlessly integrated information and communication technology directly into the physical infrastructure of offices and small conference spaces to actively spark teamwork and innovation among students and faculty. It was a total game changer. Let's move to Section 5 and see how this all builds up to the People's Internet, a platform for democracy. All of this historical architecture we just talked about, it builds directly into his modern work today as the curation director for the nonprofit On Air Networks. And the number 50 is key here. To understand the massive scale of this project, you've got to know the network comprises exactly 50 curated state hubs. All 50 of these state-level platforms feed directly into one massive, centralized, national U.S. on-air hub. It is a completely cloud-based knowledge network built specifically for civic engagement. Looking at the architecture of this platform, it's highly structured to be a completely unbiased resource. It operates under 501c3 nonprofit oversight, which ensures it remains strictly nonpartisan. It's heavily powered by university volunteers and nonpartisan organizations, and structurally, it utilizes a really unique software platform where authors actually own their own content, and they can effortlessly share it across multiple public and custom hubs. It's basically a safe, neutral space designed to provide trustworthy information without all the noise.
So the absolutely crucial point here is how users actually interact with this network. The user journey is built around 3 core civic functions. Step 1, learn from trusted sources. Step 2, discuss issues civilly. Step 3, find common ground with your fellow citizens. Scott Joy is essentially using the exact same internet architecture and collaborative philosophies he helped pioneer back in the 1980s, but he's applying them today specifically for constructive, democratic goals.
When you look back at his entire career, from teaching kids with early microprocessors all the way to uniting citizens on a nonpartisan knowledge network, Scott Joy's legacy proves that technology is, at the end of the day, just a tool. The real magic happens when we use it to connect with each other. Which leaves us with a final, pretty provocative question to consider in our own lives. How will you use your powerful modern devices to build community rather than divide it? The visionary architecture has already been built for us. Now, it's totally up to us to decide how we use it. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.